Hello guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Rarity, Pinkie, Pi, Ditzy, Luna and more Anthro ponies. Part 6. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Yet another warm and sunny afternoon washed over the town of Ponyville as the first days of August greeted the town. Upon the province of Sweet Apple Acres, one of the landowners, Applejack, was gathering apples. Assisting her was none other than Naruto and Twilight. While Spike indeed had come along, he seemed more content in sitting in the art and criticizing apples he deemed not good enough to eat. Thank you kindly for helping me out. Bet Big Macintosh could get all these apples in the barn by lunchtime. If I win, he's gonna walk down Stirrup Street in one of Granny's girdles. Applejack explained her reason in inviting them down to the farm. Taking off her hat, she began to fan herself off. What would have happened if you lost? Naruto couldn't help but wonder as he lifted up a full barrel of apples as he dumped it in the cart, nearly burying Spike under the ensuing mini avalanche. Applejack paused as the memory came to her mind. "And what do I have to do if you win?" Applejack challenged, to which Big Macintosh smiled smugly. "When I win," he said, "y'all have to lie to Granny Smith for a day." "Easy." Applejack whooped, but the look in her eyes indicating she wasn't too happy with the possibility of having to life as she lost. "That's all?" "Nope." "What?" Applejack was taken out of her thoughts of sweet early victory. She quickly regained her composure. "Okay partner, what's th catch?" she inquired cautiously. "You gotta tell her that you got knocked up by Naruto," Big Mac whispered to her with a grin, being sure that a nearby playing Applebloom wouldn't have to hear that tidbit. AJ gulped as her blood ran cold. If Granny knew that someone was fooling around with her grandchildren, the culprits would be at the altar within the hour or 6 feet under. "What's th matter, Applejack?" Big Mac playfully he taunted, playing upon his sister's pride. "You ain't chicken, ain't ya?" With that, a fire lit up inside Applejack's stomach. "I ain't never been no chicken, and I'll never will," she roared, her nostrils flaring as she summarily jabbed Big Mac in the chest with her finger. "You got yourself a bet." "Nothing. Same thing as all. Y'all know how it is." Applejack lied, badly. Drawing herself out of the memory. Applejack could not say a convincing lie to save her life, but Naruto figured whatever it was too embarrassing for the farm pony to admit. "We were glad to help, Applejack. I'm glad the goal is lunchtime. All this hard work is making me hungry," Twilight remarked as she wiped her brow and softly exhaled. She was nowhere near as fit as the two orange ponies. She was about ready to keel over, and they hardly broke a sweat. "I know, right?" Spike asked as the others gave him a mean stare. "Spike, you been in that cart while we worked?" Twilight noted as Spike responded with an apathetic shrug. "Exactly." The baby dragon aloofly countered as he merely sat back. "You guys are taking so long, I missed my early afternoon snack." At the end of his statement, all of their stomachs growled. I guess we better get some food." Twilight laughed nervously. "Nope. Worm." Ha." Spike said as he went through more apples until he came upon a good-looking apple. "Oh Spike, that looks delicious," Twilight longingly said as her gaze settled on the red treat. At that moment Twilight's hope plummeted as Twilight devoured the apple. "What?" Spike questioned as Naruto shook his head. Spike then suddenly materialized a scroll. "It's a letter from Princess Celestia," Twilight explained with glee. "What does it say?" Naruto asked as Twilight cleared her voice and began reading. Hear ye. Her Grand Royal Highness, Princess Celestia of Equestria, is pleased to announce the Grand Galloping Gala to be held in the magnificent capital city of Canterlot on the 21st day of. She summarily skimmed over the flavor text. Cordially extends an invitation to Twilight Sparkle +1 guest. Applejack and Twilight both gasped. "The Grand Galloping Gala," shouted the two mares. "Woohoo." Applejack let out a whoop of surprise. Spike stuck out his tongue like he was gagging, but he then burped out 2 tickets. "Look, 2 tickets. Wow, great. I've never been to the gala." "Have you, Spike?" Twilight without a doubt was beyond excited. "No, and I plan to keep it that way. I don't want any of that girly frilly frou-frou nonsense," Spike dismissively remarked. Yes, the Grand Galloping Gala. If he was remembering correctly, he heard about it once. "'Twas a royal party held every year in Canterlot. Many ponies would come to attend and only the most famous are ever invited." "That sounds kind of nice." "Nice? It's a heap good, more than just nice. I'd love to go," Applejack remarked with a sigh. "Land sakes, if I had an apple stand set up, ponies would be chowing our tasty victuals till the cows came home. Do you have any idea how much business I could drum up for Sweet Apple Acres? Why, with all that money, we could do a heap of fixin' up round here." We could replace that saggy old roof, and Big Macintosh could replace that saggy old plow, and Granny Smith could replace that saggy old hip. Applejack added with a sigh. Why, I'd give my left leg to go to that gala. Oh, well in that case, would you like to? Twilight began to invite the farm pony until a certain Pegasus crashes onto Twilight full throttle. Ugh. Are we talking about the Grand Galloping Gala? Rainbow Dash questioned as she recovered from the crash. Rainbow Dash, you told me you were too busy to help me harvest apples. What were you busy doing, spying? Applejack demanded with a glare. In typical Rainbow Dash fashion, she seemed ignorant of the situation at hand. Turning her gaze back to AJ for only a moment to dismissively declare her own innocence. No, I was busy napping, and I just happened to hear that you have an extra ticket. Yeah, but Twilight began to speak until she was cut off. And before she managed a third word, it was an instant interruption as Rainbow Dash launched herself into the air, thrusting a fist high overhead while she exclaimed with bold pleasure. Yes. This is so awesome. The Wanderbolts perform at the Grand Galloping Gala every year. I can see it now. The rally is taking place with the Wanderbolts watching. Everyone would be watching the sky. Their eyes riveted on the Wanderbolts, but then in would fly Rainbow Dash. Said Rainbow Dash. The audience gasps by the Pegasus's appearance. I would draw their attention with my super speed strut. Rainbow Dash performs an awesome performance. The audience cheers for the performance. Then, I would mesmerize them with my fantastic Philly Flash. And for my grand finale, the Buccaneer Blaze. The Wanderbolts' mouths drop after seeing the Buccaneer Blaze. The ponies would go wild. Sure enough, the audience did go nuts for this performance. The Wanderbolts would insist that my signature moves be incorporated into their routine and then welcome me as their newest member. Finally, the Wanderbolts put her in as a Wanderbolt. Don't you see, Twilight? This could be my one chance to show 'em my stuff. You gotta take me. Rainbow Dash pleaded. Hold on just one pony pickin' minute here. I asked for that ticket first. Applejack challenged with a flare of her nostrils. So? That doesn't mean you own it. Rainbow Dash challenged by sending a glare and showing her teeth, but Applejack was not going to sit back and take it. Oh, yeah? Well, I challenge you to arm wrestling. Winner gets the ticket. Before both of them could try and arm wrestle, Twilight puts a stop to this contest. Girls, these are my tickets, I'll decide who gets it, thank you very much. Whoever has the best reason to go should get the ticket, don't you think? Drumming up business for the farm? Applejack asked with a bit of hopefulness. A chance to audition for the Wanderbolts. Rainbow Dash threw in. Money to fix Granny's hip. Living the dream. Oh my, those were all pretty good reasons, aren't they? Twilight asked herself. Her stomach growls too. Listen to that, I am starving. I don't know about you, but I can't make important decisions on an empty stomach, so I'll, think about it over lunch and get back to you too, okay? Twilight darts towards Ponyville. Seeing as Twilight was on her way, Naruto decided it would be a wise decision to remove himself from the situation. Yeah, well, I'll go too. I already know this is a disaster waiting to happen, and I don't want to be a part of it. See you girls later. Okay. See you later. AJ and Dash bid him farewell as they looked at each other and continued their arm wrestling. Just as Naruto began leaving the area, he received feedback from a Kagabuncheon he left at his house. Apparently Ditzy just dropped off a letter and news of him getting his own ticket to the gala. That's interesting. I guess I better go see Rare and get an outfit made. He thought as he began making his way to Carousel Boutique. Per usual, Rarity was happy to make an outfit for him. The only odd thing was that it seemed to take her so much longer to do his measurements than any of her customers. You need to move, darling. If you are acting like a statue, it will remain simply impossible for me to finish. I thought you prefer it when I didn't move so much. Naruto playfully remarked, remembering how he used to be unable to sit still when Rarity made him something. I prefer it when I can work without stopping to jostle you awake. By the way, you never told me what this suit is for. I got an invitation to the Grand Galloping Gala, and considering I didn't have any fan, he found himself cut off with a loud cry. The Grand Galloping Gala. Her loud outburst startled the blonde as fell back off the standing dish. Yeah, I take it you would love to go as well. Oh my goodness, you are so lucky. Oh, how wonderful it would be to go to the gala. Every pony clamoring for Mwa's attention. In my finest dress, all my eyes would be on me. Then everyone would finally know, the most beautiful, most talented, most sophisticated pony in all of Equestria is Rarity the unicorn. Our Rarity then made a nervous laugh. But it's all just a silly little fantasy. I mean, it's not that big of deal. Rarity, I'm sorry, if I had a ticket I really would like you to go. I wasn't given an extra like Twilight, I guess the tickets are rare. Twilight has an extra ticket, you say? Rarity's expression certainly perked up at that juicy bit of information. Ah crap. Naruto thought. Sorry, Twilight. Naruto mentally added. Moments later Naruto found his suit mended with ridiculous speed. He figured that he could at least give the unicorn a heads up. He began making his way through Sugar Cube Corner when he heard an all too familiar voice singing. "Oh, the Grand Galloping Gala is the best place for me. Oh, the Grand Galloping Gala is the best place for me. Hip hip. Hooray. It's the best place for me. For Pinkie. With decorations like streamers and fairy lights and pinwheels and pinatas and pin cushions. With goodies like sugar cubes and sugar canes and sundaes and sunbeams and sarsaparilla. And I get to play my favorite-est of favorite fantabulous games like pin the tail on the pony. Oh, the Grand Galloping Gala is the best place for me. Oh, the Grand Galloping Gala is the best place for me. Cause it's the most galarific super light terrific gala ever. In the whole galaxy. Naruto arrived just in time to catch the end of the conversation. Pinkie Pie had got it in her head that she was going and Rarity was arguing against it. Oh, the society, the culture, the glamour. It's where I truly belong and where I'm destined to meet him. Him. Said Pinkie Pie as if she knew whom Rarity was speaking about. Who? Him. Rarity said as she went into detail of her own vision. In Canterlot, the rich folks are in the ballroom talking when they suddenly see Rarity with a dress walk in. I would stroll through the gala and everyone would wonder, who is that mysterious mare? They would never guess that I was just a simple pony from little old Ponyville. Why, I would cause such a sensation that I would be invited for an audience with Princess Celestia herself, and the princess would be so taken with the style and elegance that she would introduce me to him, her nephew. The most handsome eligible unicorn stallion in Canterlot. You then see a handsome stallion looking at Rarity. Our eyes would meet, our hearts would melt. Our courtship would be magnificent. He would ask for my hoof in marriage, and of course I would say, yes. We would have a royal wedding, befitting a princess, which as a giggle escaped her lips what I would become upon marrying him, the stallion of my dreams. Then and maybe only then she could work past her feelings for Naruto and not risk losing his friendship. Twilight, I simply cannot believe you would invite Pinkie Pie so she can party and prevent me from meeting my true could you? HMPH. Rarity said as she looked at the unicorn, disappointed by Twilight's decision, even though Twilight did not invite anyone yet. Girls, don't you think you should ask Twilight? The sound of scampering caught his attention. It was none other than Fluttershy's bunny angel taking the tickets from Spike. Hey! Spike exclaimed in surprise by the bunny's actions. Angel showed them to Fluttershy who replies with a small gasp. Angel, these are perfect. Fluttershy softly cooed. Listen girls, I haven't decided who to give the extra ticket to. Twilight finally spoke up. You haven't? The party and proper pony spoke at once. Naruto stepped forward, realizing how this situation was going to play out if some modicum of control wasn't added. Of course not. She just got them and hasn't decided yet. Don't you think you girls are pushing her a bit much? Excuse me, Twilight. I would just like to ask, if it would be alright if you haven't given it to someone else. Fluttershy softly and indecisively began to ask until being rudely cut off by Rarity. You want to go to the gala? Rarity asked, a bit awestruck at this revelation. For all the time she known Fluttershy she had never known her to have an interest in such an event. Oh, no. Yes, or actually, kind of. Fluttershy stammered with a faint blush. You see, it's not so much the Grand Galloping Gala as it is the wondrous private gated garden that surrounds the dance. The garden shows a huge variety of wildlife. The flowers are said to be the most beautiful and fragrant in all of Equestria. For the night of the gala, and that night alone, would they all be in bloom, and that's just the flora. Don't get me started on the fauna. Then you see a lot of animals. There's loons and toucans and bitterns, oh my. Hummingbirds that can really hum, and buzzards that can really buzz. White blue jays, and red jays, and green jays, pink jays and pink flamingos. Gee, Fluttershy, it sounds beautiful. Twilight remarked with a sigh. All her friends really wanted to go, and she didn't want to disappoint any of them. Wait just a minute. Rainbow Dash shouted from outside the window. Rainbow Dash, were you following us? Twilight asked in a more nervous tone. No. Yes. Maybe. Look, it doesn't matter. I couldn't risk a goody four shoes like Twilight giving that ticket away to just anybody. Wait just another minute. Applejack interrupted as she entered the scene. Applejack, you as well? Naruto supposed he shouldn't have been surprised. No. I was following this one to make sure she didn't try any funny business. Still trying to take my ticket. Applejack reasoned. Your ticket? Twilight asked. But Twilight's taking me. Pinkie Pie interjected with a pout. The rest of the main six keep arguing. Naruto sighed, knowing that the next step would be bribes and buttering her up. He remembered hearing about this exact same situation when Team 10 were trying to curry favor with a shinobi to get an item so they wouldn't fail the mission. Placing a hand on her, Naruto disappeared with Twilight in a swirl of leaves before the others could ever react. What just happened? Twilight remarked with a loud exclamation as they found themselves in the forest. Pretty sure I saved you from practically being eaten alive. Naruto answered cheekily. Are you alright? I am fine. She remarked a bit more subdued. Did we just teleport? Yeah, I'll explain that later, but let's solve the other bearers attempting to mob you situation. So how bad is it? Money? Wonderbolts? Party? Prince? Animals? So many reasons, how do I choose? Twilight remarked as she dipped her head slightly. Applejack wants to make enough money to fix up Sweet Apple Acres, Rainbow Dash wants to impress the Wonderbolts, Pinkie Pie thinks it'll be a gigantic version of her parties, Rarity wants to get together with some high-class unicorn. And Fluttershy wants to see the animals in the royal garden. How do I choose? I don't want to make any of them upset with me if I don't choose them. Naruto chuckled and patted Twilight's head. Hey. Twilight exclaimed, a blush adorned her cheeks. You silly pony. Do you really think that any of them would hold it against you enough to damage your friendship over it? I know them and they wouldn't do that. You have so much faith. How do you avoid being afraid that one day the ponies you consider friends might stop liking you? Friends? Real friends will respect your decisions. They will never betray you intentionally and will be willing to listen to you. You have to talk with them, Twilight, and make them understand that you understand their reasons for wanting to go and why you made the decision you eventually have to make. The two of them talked and tried to figure out the best response to give the girls. I'll go gather the others and you can make them understand your feelings on the matter. Trust me, Twilight, being honest will hurt them less in the long run than stringing them along. You're okay? Twilight nodded. She was still a bit nervous, but if she didn't speak her mind she could lose her new friends. The ponies were gathered, asked to be quiet until Twilight was done speaking. Applejack, I understand your reasons for wanting to go. Your reasons for the gala are the most noble. Naruto and I talked about it a bit and we're both willing to help you fix up the Sweet Apple Acres free of charge whenever we can. I hate to damage our friendship or something like money. Rarity, I understand your reasons for wanting to go. For all those of high-class nobles, there are some who are decent and kind like Princess Celestia, but there are just as many that aren't noble. I know your heart is set on meeting a special pony of your specifications, but do you really want to meet him in a superficial way, or do you want him to like you for you? I hate for our friendship to be damaged over something like that. Fluttershy, well, I think your idea is beautiful. I can already tell you that the ponies attending might not be so welcoming to your idea. I would hate for you to be hurt when those attending the gala wouldn't be interested in your animals. Naruto stepped forward and began speaking. Rainbow and Pinkie, since I have more social experience, Twilight, and I agreed it was better for me to break down the reasoning behind the negative repercussions that could happen with the two of you. The gala is no way suited for your interests. I know just how wild you two can be, and I can assure you partying or showing off in the way you're thinking would definitely get you two thrown out. I'm not the most formal pony, I can admit that, but I've dealt with people of noble-like class and trust me, ponies like us and our antics would not be welcomed. Pinkie, despite the gala being a party of sorts, the gathering will be rather formal. Some pony with your energy would be scorned and looked down upon by the nobles. Ash, well, I know the Wonderbolts are your heroes, they'll probably be so swamped by the other guests because of their status, I highly doubt they'll be able to give you the time you want. Twilight stepped forward, thanking Naruto before speaking again. I know how important it is for all of you, and I decided, no matter the reasons, I can't choose just one of you. I want you all to be happy, but if I choose one of you it'd be the same as saying I favor one of you over the others, and I don't want to do that. Twilight found herself sniffling, almost moved to tears. Thinking of how easily these ponies accepted and cared for her without a thought during the Nightmare Moon incident moved her tears, and the thought of straining that bond over something as simple as a party saddened her greatly. Twilight, sugar, didn't mean to put so much pressure on ya, and if it helps, don't want the ticket anymore. You can give it to some pony else. Won't feel bad, promise. Applejack remarked. Me too. I feel just awful that I made you feel so awful. Fluttershy stated, almost moved to tears herself. And me too. It's no fun upsetting your friends. Pinkie Pie as she deflated slightly. Twilight, it was unfair of me to try to force you as I did. Rarity couldn't help but feel ashamed. Yes. That means the ticket is mine. Ha ha, I got the ticket, Rainbow Dash gloated until the others shot her a mean glare. You know, I haven't perfected my signature moves for the Wonderbolts anyway. I don't need that ticket either. She ended sheepishly. We all got so gun-ho about going to the gala that we couldn't see how un-gun-ho we were making you. Applejack added. We're sorry, Twilight. The ponies apologized. Spike, take down a note. She told the baby dragon, who groaned, finally having caught up to ponies. Curse his short legs. Dear Princess Celestia. I've learned that one of the joys of friendship is sharing your blessings, but when there are not enough blessings to go around, having more than your friends can make you feel pretty awful. So, though I appreciate the invitation, I will be returning both tickets to the Grand Galloping Gala. What? The other ponies incredulous cried out. If my friends can't all go, I don't want to go either. Twilight decisively decided. Twilight, you don't have to do that. Nope. I've made up my mind. Spike, you can send the letter now. Spike breathed his magic fire on the scroll and it disappeared. Now you won't get to go to the gala either. Fluttershy noted. It's okay girls. I couldn't possibly enjoy myself without my best friends there with me, so I would rather not go at all. Couldn't you have just asked for more tickets? Naruto asked, beeping his head as Twilight's eyes widened. Twilight promptly face-palmed. How could she have overlooked something so simple? So obvious. Suddenly, Spike looked like he was going to vomit. Kirk Spike grunted before he exhaled a letter. The letter from the princess. That was fast. Twilight remarked. My faithful student Twilight. I hope you can forgive me for the oversight. It had not occurred to me the other bearers would be interested in attending the gala. At the moment I am still in the midst of handling much of the political and social outcry of the Summer Sun Festival incident. With the meeting of the other nations' leaders having finally been scheduled on the first Saturday of November, I found it suitable to finish certain tasks to lighten my schedule. I look forward to seeing you and the others in Canterlot for the ceremony which will be held the day before. Until then my faithful student. You know, we really should have thought about this. Would have saved a lot of time and headaches. Naruto remarked with a sigh. And look, 7 tickets to the Grand Galloping Gala. The ponies gasped. Now we can all go. Twilight announced as her expression morphed into one of happiness. Her stomach rumbles louder than ever which makes her laugh. She never did get that meal. You know this is a rather nice change of pace. Naruto announced as he and Twilight traversed along the path to Fluttershy's cottage. It will definitely be different. I have to admit once we finish this first round of interviews I wonder what else we could really learn. Twilight wondered as Fluttershy's home came into view. Well, your secondary assignment is to learn more about the nature of the other 5 elements, right? Maybe it might be a more detailed assessment on the nature of those traits. Maybe you might learn what's important to them through some stories they might be willing to share or why that trait more than any other is important to them. That would add a layer of complexity to the assignment beyond mere interviews. The two have stopped in front of the door of the cottage. With a quick rap on the door the light wooden structure opened and into view stepped Fluttershy. She was dressed in a light color sundress that cut off just above her knees. Good morning Naruto. Twilight. Please come in, she invited them into the homey cottage. Morning Fluttershy, Twilight couldn't help but take in the whiff of something. That smells delicious. Are those chocolate chip cookies? Indeed. I thought you both would like them. She responded as she clasped her hands. Well, that was rather nice. I think the kitchen table is big enough for us to have our interview at, if you don't mind Shy. No, not at all. She said as she led them into the kitchen. Taking a seat at the table Naruto and Twilight were soon served a plate of cookies. Are you ready for the interview Fluttershy? Naruto asked as a small smile formed on Fluttershy's face. Pepping up Twilight prepared to start the first line of questioning. She found that she really enjoyed getting to learn about her new friends. The fact it was also an assignment from Princess Celestia was just icing on the cake. So is your name just Fluttershy or do you have a clan you belong to? Having a last name was something that was done either by those of noble or royal blood and in some cases those with clans. Twilight for instance was from the Sparkle clan, even if her father didn't have Sparkle as his legal name. His mother though was the matriarch of the Sparkle clan, to which the members of that clan used a similar naming convention. Applejack's family convention of naming came from the very fruit their family thrived on. Henceforth why every pony from that family had something related to apples in their name. Legally I'm just known as Fluttershy, but my father once told me his line was an offshoot of the line of Hurricane. My ancestral grandmother was cast out of the family for marrying an earth pony. Name? Fluttershy, full ancestral name. Fluttershy Hurricane. Having some earth pony in her did explain Fluttershy's build better than if she was a pure Pegasus with a body oddity. From what Naruto understood interbreeding between the clans was rather pronounced. In the case of bulk biceps it was having more earth pony in his lineage with just enough Pegasus for him to be born a Pegasus. Do you have any nicknames or titles that you go by? Twilight asked her as the mare paused and began looking down with a semi-intense gaze. Twilight readjusted the writing instrument in her hand. Naruto began eating one of Fluttershy's cookies. He really did enjoy Fluttershy's cookies whenever he got the chance. Well Flutters, Rainbow Dash calls me that and she paused, turning a glance at Naruto before dropping her head down, her hair obscuring her face. Shy as well. Even though her voice grew quieter her voice was still in a level where hearing her was manageable. I really don't like the other ones. A sigh escaped Naruto's lips. It really said something when chicken was one of the nicer things to be called. Nicknames? Fluttershy. Naruto found himself confused at Fluttershy's rather odd behavior. Well, okay, this was Fluttershy, so it wasn't odd. Thinking about it, this whole interviewing thing would be rather intimidating for her, he figured. So when is your date of birth? Twilight, of course, was more focused on the assignment, making a mental to ask society all about her family's connection to the Hurricanes. A descendant of Commander Hurricane. The only thing that kept her from demanding the mayor tell her everything was the fact she wanted to make sure she got the interview perfect for the princess. I was born March 24, 2001 AD. You should really try some of these cookies, Twilight. Naruto interjected as he happily grabbed another cookie. Twilight sent Naruto a look as if to scold the blonde for being unprofessional. I'm sorry, Twilight, are the cookies not to your liking? Fluttershy asked, only for an expression of alarm to form on Twilight's face. Placing down the writing utensil, Twilight scooped up a cookie. No, that's not it at all. Twilight took a bite and placed on a warm if not a slightly exaggerated smile. Delicious. A smile formed on Fluttershy's face. Suddenly they were interrupted when some birds flew into the room. They began chirping to her, communicating with the caretaker. Oh no, little ones, I'm still busy. I promise I'll come see your performance as soon as I'm done. She softly cooed and helped up her hands. A giggle escaped her lips as the blue jays rubbed their heads along her fingers before taking off. Wow, so I take it your animals' friends are always coming and going? Twilight asked as Fluttershy nodded. I try to keep my home open to any sick or injured critters. She explained as she poured herself a cup of tea. A small trail of tea rose up from the cup as Fluttershy added a cube of sugar. Right, so to continue on with the interview, how tall are you? 6 feet. Whoa. She answered, taking a sip from her tea. Height? 6'2". And your weight? Twilight continued as the Pegasus's eyes widened slightly and a gasp escaped her lips. Well, she stuttered as her cheeks flushed red. Well, Fluttershy wasn't embarrassed about her weight in particular, it contributed to her body, which in itself brought attention she didn't like. Are you alright, Fluttershy? Twilight asked, wondering if something was wrong with the Pegasus. Being more pragmatic and a scholar, Twilight didn't focus on body issues as much as mares her age. Yeah. I'm 206 pounds. She finally answered. Which would put her about 50 pounds lighter than Applejack, who had a high weight count thanks to being an earth pony, not to mention developing impressive muscles from years of farm work. Muscles, after all, weighed more than fat. In fact, most Pegasus, without going through specialized weight training, hardly ever topped over 170 pounds due to their bodies being lean and builds built for agility and high-speed travel. Weight: 206. Mane: long and pale light grayish rose color with matching bangs often worn over her face to use as a shield of sorts. Eyes: moderate cyan. Okay, so the location of your cutie mark? Naruto spoke up as once more Fluttershy's cheeks burned up even more. Then again, this might be a good opportunity to see if maybe Naruto liked mares with big chests. Well, it's 3 butterflies right here. She said as she pulled down her top to reveal the top of her breasts. Her bra kept most of it breast covered, while one of the blue butterflies with pink wings were exposed. Seeing Naruto flush red and turn away his face caused a series of questions to flow through Fluttershy's mind. Did he find her attractive? Did he find her unappealing? Was she too forward? Oh, she knew this wasn't the best idea. When necessary and with enough focus, ponies could manifest their cutie mark in different places, but the process was often so exhausting that most didn't bother with it. Hey, alright. We need to. Naruto cleared his throat. He knew this wasn't going to be good. We need to know your measurements. The eyes of the Pegasus mare began to pop out of her head. My measurements. The squeak that escaped her lips were a decibel that one wouldn't think were possible. Naruto wants to know my measurements. She thought as she suddenly felt woozy. She began to fall out of her chair. She expected to hit the ground only to be caught. Shy? Naruto asked as the Pegasus found her breath caught in your throat. You okay? Her answer was of course fainting. After waking her up with smelling salts and a few cups of tea to calm her down, Fluttershy was finally able to speak. Bust measurement: 44F. Waist measurement: 30. Hip measurement: 42. Considering the small size of Ponyville, Fluttershy had to have her bra custom made, which for a mare like her was horribly embarrassing. Finally they could move on to something else. So Fluttershy, what is your career? Do you do anything besides taking care of animals? Well, my primary career is that of being the town's veterinarian, and I also do part-time work at the animal shelter. In order to supplement my income, I collect herbs and other plants and sell them. I make enough money in order to live comfortably. Whenever Fluttershy talked about her passion, there was this always sort of happy glow to her. What about your education? Well, I graduated from Ponyville High and later on went to get my bachelor's in biology, doctorate in zoology, as well as a degree in veterinary medicine. She explained a bit bashfully. She didn't like talking about her degrees because it felt like she was bragging or rubbing it in the faces of others. "You have a doctorate?" Twilight practically shouted in surprise. Even she was in the progress of getting her MA in magic. In a few months she would be returning to Canterlot to attend a final exam with other students to earn her degree. Due to Twilight's zealous study habits and love for knowledge, she was able to finish most of the courseworks and practical exams several months early. Even if by far degrees in magic were by far more difficult than other fields, it was still rather impressive for someone as young as Fluttershy to have a doctorate. Not only did Twilight gain more respect for the mare, her perspective on her changed quite a bit. "Well, yeah." A grin formed on Naruto's lips. A pretty face and a bright mind. If she had some more confidence she could probably have just about any stallion at her beck and call. He playfully joked, to which Fluttershy hid behind her wing as her cheeks darkened and embarrassed. "That's rather amazing. Your parents must be proud," Twilight commented as they returned back to the interview. Occupation: licensed veterinarian. Part-time animal shelter worker. Education: Ponyville High degree. Bachelor's in biology. Doctorate in zoology. Degree in veterinary medicine. "Do you have any scars, allergies, or illnesses?" "I have some scars and cuts while tending to some animals." She spread some of her fur in spots to show off faint scars that were rather recent. "Most of them have mostly healed, so none of them are permanent. I do not have any illnesses or have had any the past few years besides common one like the flu or fevers. I once had a case of feather rot when I was 12, but I had medical attention for that with no signs of it being in my system." Twilight winced at that. Feather rot was a rather serious and contagious Pegasus illness that if caught when younger could cause serious health issues and cause so much damage to a Pegasus's wing, it would leave them unable to fly. "As for allergies, I'm allergic to certain kinds of peppers like hot peppers." "Right, so now on to your familial ties." Twilight began as she finished writing down the last bit of information. "My family is kind of small. I have no siblings or any aunts and uncles. It's really just my papa and mother. My father is the General Grand Esteem, one of the nation's generals. My mother is a noble and works in the government and one of the members of the Canterlot Council, Flay Truths." The more Twilight learned about the Pegasus, the more she grew curious about her. Family name, occupation: father Grand Esteem General. Mother Flay Truths, council member in Canterlot. But the interview soon finished along with a plate of cookies courtesy of Naruto. The two made their way to the door. "That was a rather enlightening experience, Fluttershy. I look forward to talking with you more." "Thank you. I'll see you two later, whenever you want to or whenever we bump into each other or just walk into each other. Until then, Shy," Naruto said as he and Twilight made their way back to the library to put together the bio. "Dear Twilight Sparkle. I am afraid another matter of importance has come up that I require your assistance in solving. Earlier this week our patrols have been monitoring the outskirts of our lands and spotted a dragon. A further scouting expedition has revealed that the dragon is building a hoard within the mountainside, and the smoky embers this breed of dragon produces will have disastrous effects on the local ecosystem. The Earth Ponies' crops are already suffering from a lack of sunlight. We cannot let this continue. I would feel better knowing that you and the other bearers were to go up there to persuade him to move elsewhere, by any means necessary. I will also be sending reinforcements to act as support. I must remind you that this is a peaceful mission and violence is a last resort, especially when dealing with a dragon, but I want to make sure that my subjects are safe, including you. Your teacher, Princess Celestia of Equestria." Not too long later, the elements of Harmony, along with Naruto, had gathered for Twilight's meeting at the library. "What name all things Cinnamon's world is a full-grown dragon doing here in Ponyville county limits?" Applejack asked. "It's taking residence in the mountain," Twilight answered, much to the collective huff from every pony present. According to Princess Celestia, he has already moved his hoard there and is making the space his new home. He was recently spotted in the area by patrols earlier this week. He could simply be migrating for any number of reasons. Dragons by far are one of the more secretive races, but I would not be surprised if the increasing amount of criminal activity in the countryside had anything to do with it. Rarity, with an uncertain look on her face, spoke up. "But why us? Surely a unit of trained guards would be better suited for this kind of situation." "It might have to do with special status you six might have." Naruto spoke up as the six of them turned their attention to him. "Special status?" Rainbow Dash asked. "It's not uncommon for leaders of the nation to gift a special title to those who have done a great service to their nation. Depending on the laws of the nation, one doesn't always need to be in the military to be deputized by their nation's leader for their service. Considering the six of you are now known as the bearers of Harmony, it wouldn't be all that unusual to think that the other natives of this town might expect you six to do something." I can see this as the princess's way of helping you 6 avoid bad publicity, thanks to your newfound status, or as I should say 5 as I assume Twilight used to this kind of political maneuvering being Princess Celestia's pupil. It's probably why she's sending the backup as well. Think about it, as the bearers without your elements going in against a dragon is pretty much insane. Right now you're all still legally civilians, and asking you to go in unarmed would be rather stupid. I feel that the princess wouldn't make this request without making sure sufficient backup is going to be sent. The witch Twilight began speaking up once more. This is a diplomatic mission, and Princess Celestia is sending us backup in case the situation goes awry. Unfortunately our forces have been spread thin, which is why the princess isn't sending a unit. Hopefully we'll be able to solve this without much incident. Right, Naruto agreed. So we should figure out a plan. I'll tell you the plan, we give him the boot. Rainbow piped up and with a backward kick into a wooden horse head bust in the middle of the room, Twilight resetting it with her magic. But Rainbow was getting into it as she launched herself at the bust, yelling, "Take that." But Twilight had moved the bust out of the way, leaving Rainbow to crash into the wall in a slump. Doing so could cause untold property damage or the loss of innocent life. We need to be diligent in how we approach this, Twilight corrected her. Princess Celestia has given us this mission and we must not fail. Then we're going to need to get ready. Naruto added. Alright every pony, I'll need you to gather supplies quickly, Twilight instructed as she put on her saddlebags. We have a long journey ahead of us. Let's meet back here tomorrow morning. The reinforcements should be arriving by then. Fillies and gentlecolts, we've got a job to do. Rainbow Dash declared. Do we have what it takes? Applejack, Pinkie, Rarity and Naruto all let out a cheer affirmatively as they headed out, with Fluttershy bringing up the rear, looking nervous. This did not escape Naruto's notice. He went over and gave an encouraging nudge to her shoulder, saying, "Everything will be alright, Flutters. We all have something to contribute." As she watched Naruto walk along the path back to his home, Fluttershy couldn't help but smile a little at his encouragement, despite the lingering doubt she felt. That following morning they all gathered in front of the library as they waited for the arrival. As if on cue, sky carriages drifted down in front of them. The first was gilded with a golden and white metal, symbolizing Celestia's guiding sun, and was pulled by 2 Pegasus guards. Out of the carriage was none other than the solar captain herself, Shine Spark. Auntie Spark. Twilight exclaimed in surprise. Twilight, how is my favorite niece? The captain of the guard warmly greeted her. Happily, Twilight went over and embraces the much taller unicorn. What about the situation in the countryside? Shouldn't you be on a more important mission? The sanctity of Ponyville is important. After all, the location of Her Majesty's prized pupil and the bearers is one of our more prominent hot spots. I was already assigned nearby to overlook the training of some new recruits. Because of Ponyville's small population, recruiters have it low on the list to visit for recruits. As such, by Her Majesty's will I am to serve her in an advisory role until the situation escalates into one requiring military intervention. She and I both have faith that you will be able to handle this situation quite well. Now, I wish to meet the ponies who have become your friends. Oh, of course. Twilight said as she happily led her aunt over to meet every pony. Oh hello Twilight's aunt, it's so nice to see you. I'm Pinkie Pie. As always, Pinkie Pie began greeting her with her usual exuberance and flurry of questions. As expected of a professional, she took it all in stride. One by one they introduced themselves. So, I mean, now that Miss Spark is here, surely I'm not needed. I mean, who would feed my animals when I'm gone? Fluttershy quickly excused. Well, Spike is going to take care of it. Twilight reasoned. I asked him to take care of them while we're gone. All he'll need is your set of keys. Now hold on a minute. Why would we not bring them along with us to convince that dragon to move? From what little I read about dragons, if Spike happens to be from an enemy clan, that could make the situation even worse. Not to mention they really respect power, so he might take it as an insult and react rather violently. Seeing Fluttershy's fidgeting, he realized she was really nervous. Hey, if anything happens I'll be by your side, Shy. But that Shine Spark dismissed the members of the Pegasi Guard. Being one of the strongest unicorns alive, she had fought many dangerous magical creatures. That included a manticore, a hydra, and even another dragon. With dragons regarded as so dangerous, she was chosen for her power and skill. Not long later, Twilight walked in front of 8 ponies assembled, saying, "Alright, every pony, I'm mapping out the quickest route, but we've all got to keep a good pace if we're to make it by nightfall." Looks pretty cold up there. Applejack observed. Higher altitudes have colder climates. Rainbow Dash answered. She then glanced over to Fluttershy, who was practically hanging off Naruto. On one hand, she knew her full hood friend had a tendency to be scared of everything. While on one hand she wanted to suggest to Twilight it might be best to leave Fluttershy there, but on the other hand, maybe it was time to start giving her little pushes here or there, so she would start growing a little braver. Well then it's a good thing I brought my scarf. Rarity commented as she pulled it from her bag, a scarf striped into 2 shades of pink, Pinkie complimenting, "Ooh, pretty." Rarity posed with it, Rainbow giggling, "Yeah, that'll keep you nice and cozy." Before long, the ponies were making their way towards the mountain, and the closer they got, the louder the snores coming from atop became. "You know the dragon won't even be able to see us until we get to the top of the mountain, right?" Twilight said to Fluttershy. "I'm fine thank you." She stuttered as she rode on Naruto piggyback style. She held onto him with an iron grip. "Don't you think you might slow him down, dear?" Rarity suggested, fighting her feelings of annoyance at her longtime friend, which was battling with her feelings of sympathy towards her. The fact that Fluttershy was coming at all was a rather large step for her, but it didn't mean she had to be all over Naruto like that. "This trek is taking forever," Rainbow whined with her usual impatience showing. "I'm gonna fly up and check it out." But Naruto barred her way, saying, "Hold on Rain, you might inadvertently disturb the dragon before we're ready. Remember, we're approaching this diplomatically." "Oh alright." Rainbow pouted. Before long, every pony was making their way up, Rainbow flapping aloft with the same bored pouty look as Rarity said, "I heard the only thing that sparkles more than a dragon's scales are the jewels they use to build their nests. Ooh, if I play my cards right, I might convince him to part with a few." "Oh. You mean like, welcome to my cave, Rarity," Pinkie said in a growly voice. "Care for it diamond?" Rarg. Every pony laughed at her little joke except Shine, who was still forming her own opinions about her niece's companions, and Twilight, who said, "Every pony. This is no laughing matter." "Oh relax, Twilight," Naruto waved it off. "Just a little humor to ease the tension." Twilight growled at his words, but let it go as she said, "Fluttershy, you're the expert on other species. What do you think the dragon will be like?" Fluttershy. "Angry, furious, mad, hungry." Fluttershy squeaked out as she threatened to put the blonde in a chokehold. Twilight was about to press on, wondering what was up with Fluttershy when Shine called her over. It looked like they spotted some sort of movement. Potential bandits or slave traders could also be in the area. The ponies in the area could be potential hostiles. Shine began as she began making notations on the map Twilight brought. She circled 4 spots on the mountain. Patrols have broken up small traveling packs in this area that were transporting carts of weaponry and pillaged goods from small towns. Many of these attacks were carried out quickly and efficiently, meaning that there is likely one or more mastermind behind the attacks. There is a good possibility that some of the bandits are here for the sole purpose of waiting for the dragon to go to sleep or leave to hunt to pillage from his horde. With this possibility in mind, we have no choice but to prepare for the likelihood of engaging in combat. As she finished this statement, she gazed upon their faces. Determination and worry were the most common expressions. This means doing whatever we can to prevent a surprise run-in and ambush. "Miss Fluttershy and Miss Dash, since you're both Pegasi, it would help if you use your talents to clear the smog in the sky and act as our eyes in the air to warn us if any pony is coming." Fluttershy's panicked expression wasn't hard to miss. After all, those who knew Fluttershy also knew she wasn't a strong flyer. "Captain Spark, I'm better off handling the fog on my own, Fluttershy really isn't the strongest flyer." Even though Fluttershy knew Rainbow Dash was trying to be helpful, the reminder still made the other flyer wince. "Very well, I suppose we should be going over a strategy for when we engage the enemy." Fluttershy is not one for violence either. She's a pacifist, you see. Rarity explained as Shine Spark sent the Pegasi a look that the untrained eyes would inevitably miss. "I see." Well, the words may have seemed a simple reply, it was the tone that defined it. Judgmental. Those were the eyes of the soldier who did not get along well with one they deemed as weak. "Then Miss Fluttershy will have to stay safe by the sidelines if we find ourselves in such a situation." The frown marred Naruto's features. He remembered stories his wife used to tell him a long time ago on how she was treated. How she was treated like glass and the assumptions that were made about her in regards to her strength. Fluttershy's ears drooped a bit. Had she picked up on it as well? "I'm sorry. I wish I could be brave as every pony else. It's just," she trailed off as she sniffled. "You can be, Shy," Naruto assured her. "There was a time where I thought being brave meant jumping headfirst into danger and proving you weren't a coward, but I soon learned that wasn't the case. You remind me of some pony I knew a long time ago. Some pony I loved dearly." The blush appeared on Fluttershy's cheeks at this admission. "Really?" "Yes, she was a lot like you. Soft-spoken, kind, and very loving. One day she grew tired of being treated like a failure and strove towards growing stronger. Even if it meant going against others and obstacles she feared, she knew she had to take on those challenges, so her fear would no longer control her. In essence, being brave means facing some pony or something even when you're scared, and just because you get scared sometimes does not mean you're incapable of having courage. I know, when the time is right, you'll be able to show that courage." Fluttershy smiled at him gratefully. Acting as their eyes from above, Rainbow Dash was able to steer them towards the mountainside without much incident. The sooner they handled the situation with the dragon, the sooner they would be able to leave the area without much incident. Since the threat of combat from other ponies seemed unlikely at this point, Twilight took the reins again. Rarity and Pinkie Pie, you'll create a distraction for the dragon in case the situation goes south in there. Applejack, Naruto, you two be ready with crystal bombs to support Captain Spark in case he decides to attack. The duo nodded, bringing forth a sack of crystallized magic spheres that were brought for the trip. Because the hide of dragons was as tough as to be resistant to most magic or weaponry, special items were often crafted to get around that. The concussive force of these magic bombs were more than enough to cause pain to the creature, seeing as he lacked any of the tall tale signs of being an elder dragon. But it shouldn't come to that, because Fluttershy will do what she needs to do to wake him up. Twilight assured. Fluttershy, feeling her heart pound, soon found a comforting hand on her shoulder. You'll be fine, he tried to soothe her. He figured Fluttershy was reacting with her usual levels of fear, having grown used to her sensitivity. And between her and me, we should be able to get him to understand why he needs to go. Is every pony ready? They all nodded, Twilight saying, okay then, we're going in. Fluttershy found herself unable to move. I can't. Twilight paused in her tracks. Wait, what? The Pegasus began stuttering. I can't do it, Twilight. But Fluttershy, we need your help. You have a great deal of knowledge on dragons, so who better than you to negotiate with one? I just can't. Fluttershy choked back a sob, on the verge of a breakdown, before she was pulled into a comforting hug by Rainbow Dash. Remorseful, Rainbow Dash began speaking. I'm such an idiot. How could I have forgotten? If you don't want to do this, I won't let them make you, okay, Fluttershy. Fluttershy nodded and whispered out thanks. We're going to have to do this without Fluttershy. I'm sorry, I know you were depending on her, Twilight, but there's some personal baggage behind it. It's okay, Twilight's face softened in empathy. I understand, recalling her own fears and how it could make one irrational. She turned to the others who nodded in understanding. Fearful and panic they were used to, but the fact that the poor mare seemed like she was going to have a panic attack was more than enough to keep them from pressing on the issue. In fact, considering her nature, the fact she was afraid to speak up on the issue also made sense. So with it they alternated the plan a bit. Naruto and Twilight would try diplomacy first. If the dragon immediately went hostile, he would be able to get her out of there while saving up her magic for the conflict. There are things that some just aren't ready to face. We've all had that moment, you know. I know, Twilight responded with a sigh. I just assumed that she would be up to this without even checking with her. Don't feel too guilty, Twilight, Naruto's face mirrored the same guilt. I just assumed this was her usual fearfulness without even trying to see if there a deeper issue. Let's just focus on the dragon for now. Going deeper into the dwelling, they expected it to be cloaked in darkness, but the shine off the treasure trove of gold coins and jewels illuminated the dark and dank infrastructure of the mountainous cavern, gave a lovely visual image. Napping on top of a large cache of coins was a massive russet-scaled dragon. The creature, from what they could see, may have been from one of the rare wingless ground-based species. Excuse me, Twilight called nervously, the dragon only shifting onto his back and scratching his belly. Mr. Dragon. The creature either didn't hear her or was ignoring her. Hey. Trying to get your attention here. Naruto hollered out to the beast, catching his attention. The visible eye of the creature opened immediately, putting the two ponies on edge. Oh good, you're awake. My name is Twilight Sparkle, this is my friend. The dragon simply yawned a bad case of morning breath onto the two, making them cover their noses. Naruto the blonde answered as he repressed the urge to let out a few choice words. Listen, we are part of a party, an envoy from the town of Ponyville which occupy lands near here. We know you seem interested in making this dwelling your new home, but the smog you produce is hazardous to the environment. It's killing off our crops, not to mention you did not go through the proper channels to take residence in this territory. In other words, he didn't apply for citizenship, was not a visiting dignitary from another nation, nor was he given asylum by the equestrian government. The methods one often goes through when taking residence in foreign soil. The dragon huffed smoke at them disdainfully, making them cough, but Twilight continued. Surely you have heard of the treaties between our two species in the regards of rogue citizens simply taking residence in foreign soil. The dragon growled as he stretched his arms and slumped down, again snorting smoke at them, and the message was as made loud and clear as the two ponies' coughs. Smoke followed them on their way out. So much for the persuasion option. As much as Naruto would have loved giving that creature one to the eye, it wasn't worth starting an incident over. Now what do we do? Applejack asked. Obviously, Rarity stepped up, tossing back her mane. This situation calls for a little pony charm. Allow me, darlings. With her usual confident stride, Rarity made her way into the cave. Oh, Sir Dragon. She sang out with her usual melodic tune. I was just passing by and I couldn't help but notice how shiny your scales are." The dragon's ears perked up at this. This was new one for him. Most ponies begged for their lives when they met him and never had the courtesy to compliment him on anything before he roasted them alive. "And you just have the most perfectly polished claws to match them," Rarity continued as she absent-mindedly helped herself to his hoard, trying on various accessories of jewelry. Unfortunately, Rarity's momentary lapse into greed would prove her undoing, as if there was one thing you don't do when it comes to dragons is touching their hoards. Moments later Rarity had to abandon every single piece of jewelry to escape the rain of fireballs behind her. Rarity propped herself on a rock, to which she covered with her emergency survival blanket of course, looking very displeased at her failure. "I was this close to getting that diamond," she complained. "You mean getting rid of that dragon?" Naruto corrected with a raised eyebrow. "Oh, yeah, sure." The mare answered, only half listening as she was lamenting the loss of that beautiful treasure. Well, she was glad she didn't come in high heels at least. Pinkie Pie went next, trying to use the power of laughter to get the creature on her side. When she came out singed and the only remain of the silly getup she brought was a single balloon tied to her tail, they knew they're running out of ideas. "Twilight, it appears diplomacy is a lost cause. The dragon refuses to move, so we have no choice but to engage it in battle." Those who saw themselves with might were often far too arrogant or drunk on their own image of their invincibility to give diplomacy a try. Shine Spark had seen it many times. "Wait, Auntie," Twilight paused and corrected herself. "Captain Spark, we can do this. Just give us some more time," she pleaded. "Twilight, the nature of this mission is proven too specialized for the unique nature and capabilities of you and your friends." The pause and substitutions in her response was obvious. Shine Spark was not one to mince words, but seeing as she had a soft spot for her niece, never having foals of her own as she was essentially married to the job, wanted to avoid hurting her feelings. From what she was seeing so far, it was difficult to think these mares were the bearers of such ancient and powerful artifacts as the elements of harmony. Reckless, a socialite, a goofball, and a coward. Tartarus, the only one that seemed remotely normal was the farmer, and that was the thing, she was a farmer. No formal training. At least her niece was the princess's personal apprentice in magic, and as for the stallion, she didn't know what to make of him. "Hey. You trying to say we weak or something?" Rainbow Dash was no stranger to being underestimated. "It is not my place to question Her Majesty's decisions. I am merely expressing my concern that in this situation that your tactics of diplomacy are merely ineffective in this situation." "Now wait, hold on," Twilight began to plead, not wanting a fight to break out. "No, your aunt is just like some of the others in town. Being a Pegasus, one had more opportunities than the other tribes to stumble upon or to overhear a private conversation." Rainbow Dash had more than picked up a few times on ponies, disbelieving that the bearers were the bearers because of their issues. There were those who thought Pinkie Pie was an unstable loon that needed to be locked up. Applejack, an idiot farmer who was only good at apple bucking. Rarity, a vain and self-entitled elitist. Fluttershy, a nervous nut incapable of doing everything and needed to practically be babysat, and how many others thought she was a disillusioned and lazy liar. Ever since that incident. Damn him. Damn the stallion that. We'll get that damn dragon to move without your help. The memory had sparked strong emotions within Rainbow Dash. She was angry. The anger and apprehension coursing through her caused her to act without thinking. She didn't hear her friends cry out. "Time for you to find a new home." Rainbow Dash began rotating at such speed she ended unleashing a powerful spinning tornado kick with her legs. The impact was enough to cause the dragon's head to snap to the side, but not enough to cause any lasting damage. Awakened, the creature began to rise to his full height, dwarfing the Pegasus in size 100 times over. The reveal of its teeth suddenly caused the Pegasus to lose much of her bravado. "Ah shit." The dragon roared with such force, Rainbow was sent hurtling outside, crashing through her friends. Shine Spark was the first to react, firing off several curses at the creature's ankles, but the scales proved harder than diamond, as not so much as a scratch appeared on them. Naruto recovered next with Applejack shortly behind him. Widening the sack, they began hurling the spheres at the beast. The concussive blasts proved strong enough to physically cause the creature to recoil, but they were proving ineffective in terms of drawing out any physical damage. The eyes and underbelly are weak points. Aim for them. Shine Spark ordered as she used telekinesis to gain control of 5 magical spheres. With pinpoint accuracy, she hurled them in a line up the upper portion of the dragon's torso, causing it to fall backwards. "Now," she shouted as she launched a magical attack. Twilight charged up a concentrated bolt of magic and fired. Naruto and Applejack launched several more magical spheres at the creature, only for him to maneuver his wing and block the attack. The force of the attack caused the nearby ground to crack under the attack. The dragon responded by letting out a stream of flames, forcing Applejack and Naruto to abandon the bag. The dragon let out a roar when something hot seemed to be branded on his scales. Looking down, he noticed some kind of marking. He nearly crumpled over when a blast from the captain of the guard caused another to appear on one of his legs. He fired at the captain only for her to quickly erect a barrier to shield herself from the flames. His vision was soon obscured by Rainbow Dash, who was using speedy blitz attacks. Repeated blunt force attack by the others was beginning to wear the dragon down. There was only two possibilities: either the magic on his body was part of a complicated spell that somehow transferred damage past his body, or the markings were somehow being used as a conduit to mess with the signals in his body, to fool it into thinking it was in pain, which would cause enough of a distraction to keep him from fighting off balance. However, there was one thing that he had to his advantage. Despite his appearance of a low-intellect dragon, he was still very sound in mind. Inhaling, the creature suddenly let out a spray of smog that quickly enveloped the group. The smog. Clear the smog. Shine Spark commanded in between her hacking fit. We need to track the beast. Immediately her horn illuminated as she tried to make out the image of the creature. Even in this dark substance, its eyes shouldn't be difficult to find. Suddenly she found herself yanked off her feet by her ankle. Zeroing in, she quickly maneuvered and fired a blast of magic from her horn, only for the creature to twist out of the way, only for her blast to nail Naruto instead. The dragon immediately began to fire flames at her, to which Shine Spark barely erected a barrier in time. The intensity and quickness of the blast didn't make sense. Even crouching, there was no way its flames should have reached her that quickly. The toxicity from the smog was starting to do its thing as her eyes started to burn. She found herself unable to move from having inhaled too much of the substance. The brightness of Shine Spark's lilac's aura proved to be an effective beacon as the others rushed over. What in Tartarus? Applejack cried out as the creature immediately went on the attack. The massive beast of a dragon had taken a much smaller bipedal form. He was as large as your typical earth pony in height, but his serpentine shape was more slender and aerodynamic, giving him a Pegasus-like build along with a long and elongated neckline, reminiscent of a serpent. This much smaller form allowed him to maneuver much faster. He proved capable of dodging the spells that weakened him. Seeing Twilight was about to launch a spell, he used his tail to strike her in the horn, stunning her and sending her flying back. You bastard. Naruto, Rainbow Dash, and Applejack rushed him from 3 different sides. The toxic smog having been blasted away thanks to powerful gusts from the Pegasus. Before they could reach him, he began spewing a ring of fire around him, causing them to stop in his tracks and took to the air. Rainbow took to the air ready to use some martial arts before the dragon took a deep breath and let out a deafening roar. Its smaller form only served to compress the mighty creature's roar to near skull-splitting decibels, completely stunning Rainbow Dash as her mind went about recovering from the attack. The creature was caught off guard as a twin set of feet drove into its back and sent it crashing back into the ground. Naruto and Applejack went on pressing the attack, which was able to force the creature back thanks to the pain channeling throughout its body from Shine Spark's spell. Suddenly remembering what happened earlier in the battle, the creature allowed the 2 earth ponies to strike, fighting through the pain of their strikes to his torso. Drawing his hand back, he jabbed 3 of his nails into Naruto's shoulder. Naruto let out a wail in pain as his body seemed to seize up from the pain. The very magic prepared for the purpose of weakening the toughness of a dragon's hide was being used against them. The potency of both the magic and spell proved its effectiveness by crippling his body. Applejack paused and turned to grab the blonde and tried to get them out of there, but the dragon was not going to give up the opportunity to put them down. The creature's roar and sudden lunge drew Applejack's attention. She wasn't going to be able to move in time. Suddenly a blur of pink had appeared between them and moved them out of the creature's path. Applejack let out a sigh of relief. I hope you'll have a plan, cuz I sure don't. Applejack remarked as Rarity finished using her telekinesis to bring over Rainbow's body. Shine Spark and Twilight were out of the fight thanks to how much of the smog they inhaled, and Rainbow was unable to stand up straight. We were hoping you had one. Pinkie Pie answered, her usual characteristic exuberance absent. Neither Pinkie nor Rarity had any abilities that could take on a dragon, hence why it was suggested they stood back if they went the route of combating the dragon. The dragon charged forward and was about to attack when he found himself blindsided by a kick. A restrained cry escaped Naruto's lips as he tried to repress the pain. Naruto. Rarity cried out. Let the others get them a safe distance. He said as the dragon began to recover. Clutching his fists, Naruto readied himself for the dragon's attack. With a flap of his wings, he shot forward as Naruto edged back and launched a fist between the creature's eyes, causing him to jolt back from the impact. Suddenly the creature's tail wrapped around his ankle and yanked Naruto off his feet. Naruto rolled over as the creature's foot smashed into the ground, causing a crater where his head was. Getting back to his feet, Naruto decided it was time to turn the tables. Seeing as there was the possibility for combat, Naruto made the decision to create clones to gather Sage Chakra. Dispelling a clone, Naruto went into Sage mode and nearly blacked out from the transformation. The magic spell is being fueled by the magic in the energy you drew in. Your body won't be able to handle it. You have to handle this quickly. Naruto immediately pressed the attack, hitting it with several frog kata strikes, to which the dragon found himself unable to defend against. He didn't understand how he was being struck without being physically touched. I got to end this now. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his hand, but the stress was too much. His body seized up and he began coughing up blood. He could feel the faint sound of voices, but he couldn't move. Suddenly he felt arms being wrapped around him. He wanted to shout at them, tell them to get out of there, but he couldn't move. Upon realizing that he was no longer being beaten around, the dragon made his move. The dragon decided to transform back into his larger body. It had been ages since he last had entertainment, so he decided to make it last. Using his tail he flung it at them. Naruto, using what strength he had left, knocked Rarity and Pinkie down as the tail knocked him back into a boulder, causing it to shatter and reveal that Fluttershy had been hiding behind it. The moment the fight started, Fluttershy had hid behind the boulder in fright. She couldn't face one of those creatures again. She began having flashbacks to that day. To that day she was almost devoured as a filly by one of the greed-controlled dragons when she stumbled upon its horde by accident one day when she was exploring to meet more animals. She was shaken, paralyzed with fear as tears streamed down her cheeks. The heavy footsteps caused her to fall over, and that's when Fluttershy caught sight of her friends. Bruised, beaten, cut up, and terrified. The dragon began spewing flames at them, causing Rarity and Pinkie to cry out in fear, while Applejack let out a stream of curses, cutting them off from the downed stallion and the others. The dragon was tormenting them. It was hurting her friends. In that moment, something deep inside the Pegasus has snapped. Her face took on an expression of fury. How dare you? The wings of the Pegasus extended. How dare you? The fierceness and intensity of the statement caught every pony off guard. Fluttershy? Rarity asked in utter surprise. She zoomed right up onto the dragon's snout, glaring right into his eye, scolding, "If you think I'll stand by and let you hurt my friends, then you are sorely mistaken. What gives you the right to come into Equestria and decide to do whatever you want, huh? What have any of us done to provoke such a reaction? All we ask is that you please move somewhere else so you wouldn't end up damaging our town. You think just because you're a dragon you can come and throw your weight around like some bully? You may have huge teeth and sharp scales and snore smoke and breathe fire. You can air your grievances all you want, but you do not, I repeat, you do not, hurt my friends. You got that?" Every pony couldn't stop gaping and were shocked as the dragon lowered his head submissively. The dragon was utterly surprised at the bravery of this little one. And those eyes. Looking into those eyes, a sense of dread began to fill him. He had already been on the receiving end of the pony's magic once already, he did not want to press his luck. This matter only escalated because the rainbow one attacked me while I rested. If I had been left in peace, the situation would not have escalated as it had. The revelation that he wasn't a mindless greed beast had shocked the others. Most loner dragons were either on a quest to which they journey only with the items required for this soul-searching journey, or they were dragons that gave into their greed. Either for a lust of wealth or for the size and rage which would grant them strength proportionate to their size. Size was also something of a status in dragon culture. "And I'm very sorry about that," Fluttershy replied, "but you know full and well most of my friends tried to be very diplomatic about that before it came to that point. You refused, knowing full and well your actions were going to be harmful to others. Now could you please move so your smog will stop putting the area in risk?" "Very well, Yellow One. Your courage is rather commendable, I will oblige your request." Fluttershy then landed on the ground where the others were waiting for her. Since Shine Spark knew a healing spell, she was able to jumpstart Twilight and Rainbow's recovery, as well as cast the counter spells for the spells that magnified the sensation of pain, as well as screw up the nervous system of the victim on Naruto. "You did it," Twilight cheered. "That was amazing, Fluttershy," Naruto added. "My word, I never knew you get like that," Rarity voiced in surprise. "Do we remind me to never get on your bad side," Applejack playfully remarked. "That was amazing, way to go, Fluttershy," Pinkie Pie stated. "Yeah, you were a total badass," Rainbow added. Fluttershy blushed under the praise of her friends. "The job well done indeed, which means I can report back to the princess that the situation was resolved." Shine Spark then added, "Good job by the way, Miss Fluttershy. She supposed there may be a bit of something to these bearers after all. Maybe. Either way, it wasn't her place to question Her Majesty after all." In the sky, the moon finished its ascent to the sky, but the night's activities were far from done. Luna couldn't help but chuckle, recalling the arrangement of stars she witnessed during her first night back. For all her sister's sophistication, it did not transfer to arranging the stars. Luna had finally recovered enough of her magic to gain control of the moon and to begin a limited rearrangement of the stars. Luna was an artist. While Celestia was one that excelled in politics and public relations, Luna was more gifted in other things. She was more than a warrior princess, but a dabber of the many fine arts. The sky itself was her canvas, the stars were her paints, pastels, and pencils. Luna's arts were mostly self-indulged and kept from the public eye, with the exception of the night sky. Her efforts, while unappreciated in general by the common eye, were observed and praised by the silent voices of the observant. For so many years the Princess of the Moon was proud, as her subtle workings were praised by poets. Used by sailors as guides and gazed at by common ponies. Tonight though it seemed like that the stroke of brilliance attuned to the princess would not come. Gah, accursed the foul newborns. The curse left the princess's lips as she tried to adjust to the newborn stars in the sky. To many it would have just been a random arrangement of twinkling dots in a black space, but to Luna, it was her gift to the world. While Celestia nurtured their ponies, Luna's gifts were to the planet itself. Maybe a bit of tweak is necessary. She would show her people beauty. She would bring art to the sky once again. Returning a gift, an apology to the planet for attempting to rob it of the day it thrived on and needed to survive. It would be worth it. The arrangements in her mind were differed enough from the night sky enough to irritate her. A few of the constellations had to be scooted together to give her the room needed. Luna dipped her horn in frustration when the arrangement dipped instead of smoothly and sharply coming together. Worthless sloppy. Luna muttered to herself. Has the spark that fueled my designs waned in the millennia past? She closed her eyes and shifted through the centuries. It seemed there was no limit to Luna's inspiration. Each night the arrangements would come to her with ease. For as the years passed the birth of constellations would come to mind and even a few ponies noticed her work, the stars were Luna's pride. As the princess grew so did her view of her art. Her views matured from yearning praise to simply doing what she loved. Suddenly it was as if the spark had returned. With a wave of her horn stars began blinking into existence as they began to form an array. A small shape was formed and crafted forming the shape of a gem. Soon multiple shapes began to take form, intricate in design as it filled the night sky. Those shapes were interwoven in a pattern that was then enclosed in a larger shape. The pattern of interwoven and superimposed gems continued as the princess sat back and admired her handiwork. Luna stared at it. An unladylike sneer formed on her face. It was a hastily thrown together monstrosity that lacked any elegance to its shape or meaning. You've lost yourself. You've lost what made you, you. It was that nagging voice, that nagging self-doubt or insecurity that was fueled by nightmare. Luna. A voice cut through the self-loathing voice of the ID. Sir Naruto. We bid thee welcome. What is thee doing here? Of all ponies to catch her here in the midst of her breakdown. I hope I didn't startle you. I decided to visit to gain some more information on potential plants for bits. Ponyville is still recovering from the dragon smog and Princess Celestia told me she wouldn't mind if I harvested some of the seeds from the plants to help in this endeavor. When I took notice of the stars I couldn't withhold my enthusiasm of seeing them and maybe spend time with a friend. The orange stallion blushed bashfully. I hope you don't mind if I stay and watch. I love the stars and I'm sure you'll make something amazing. Luna couldn't help but feel a swell of pride and appreciation at the stallion's words. She closed her eyes once more, focusing on the sensation she was feeling. The stars began to fill the sky, forming images that illuminated the sky. Though if a very attentive eye would have paid attention to a little gather of stars positioned near the moon, they would see an arrangement made in the shape of a heart. I wish there were more like you that appreciate my nights. Naruto took a glance at Luna and then suggested, well, maybe it might help the other ponies become more comfortable if they were to see you more. Maybe doing things like the other common ponies do would help you seem more relatable. We wish it were that simple. Learning modern culture is taking a good deal of our focus. Well, why don't we start off with something small? Like making an appearance in public. In fact, why don't we both go? You remember Rarity, right? Luna nodded. The bearer of generosity, right? Yeah, she recommended to me a restaurant she once read about and it sounds like it might be nice to go to. He suggested as the expression on Luna's face went from surprise to one of coy. Why, Sir Naruto, how forward of you, we had no inclination you had any attention to court us. She teased the blonde who immediately began stammering. What I meant as friend. He found himself cut off by the sound of Luna's rich and heartfelt laughter. With her old equestrian accent it was quite charming. Great, I get enough of it from Celestia, now you're teasing me too. Despite the expression he tried to convey he couldn't help but smile. He liked seeing Luna smile. Indeed, we happen to oversee sister's little joke for the interviews regarding the bears. We are glad to see she hasn't gone rusty in her absence. As for your suggestion, we are more than happy to accept your request. Well, how about this following Friday at 6? He asked as a smile graced Luna's features. It would be better if we were to meet 2 weeks from now at that time. In our current state it takes most of my energy to stay awake after setting the night. she suggested, to which Naruto nodded. "We shall look forward to meeting thee at that time," she calmly answered as she was suppressing the urge to let out a little filly-like squeal. Bidding farewell for the night, the two parted their ways to go about their life and prepare for the up-and-coming get-together. Wanting to make a good impression with Luna and to get the name of the restaurant again, Naruto turned to Rarity. She was an expert when it came to these kinds of things. Walking into the air-conditioned store, the blonde half expected for Rarity to speak her motto at the sound of her shop bell ringing. For a moment he was wondering where she was, before remembering that this must have been one of Rarity's off days, meaning the boutique would be closed and she wouldn't be expecting any visitors. Heading up to the second floor, Naruto called out for Rarity and didn't receive an answer. Peering around the living area, he finally made his way to Rarity's bedroom door, which was closed. He concluded that she must have still been asleep. He decided to wash up and maybe make something to eat. In his haste, he hadn't had anything to eat that morning aside a bagel. Twisting the knob, Naruto walked into the bathroom, or the mini-spa as he had taken to calling it. Comparably, Rarity's bathroom was twice the size of a regular bathroom with a bathtub large enough to fit two. Then there was Rarity's rather large assortment of pampering tools. Neatly lined up, Rarity had an assortment of body butters, perfumes, and other items. Then of course there were the brushes for her coat, the brushes for her mane, and the brushes for her teeth. There were also assortments of incense candles, soaking solutions, and different types of soap. Quite frankly, the memorization and research for the items, as well as deciding their intended purpose, must have taken days if one were to take the time from the weeks Rarity spent shopping and buying them and compress the time together. All in all, the sight began bringing back a sense of familiarity. It was with this large assortment of beauty products, one could see how Rarity always managed to start the day looking her best. Feeling rather nostalgic, Naruto decided to head to the kitchen to start making breakfast. Going through the pantry and gathering the cooking utensils, he began making preparations for hay cakes, eggs, and hash browns. After everything was settled on the counter, he decided to set up the dining table. He remembered just how every morning Rarity would have the table set during his first few weeks of stay. The napkins were neatly folded with the proper knives, forks, and spoons in place. He even remembered the correct place for the orange juice glass, as well as the teacup and saucer. He was surprised at how much he missed living here. How much he missed seeing Rarity in the morning. How much he missed seeing Rarity's eyes twinkle when inspiration struck. The sound of her giggles. He shook away the thoughts. Ever since Luna's little joke about wanting to court her, Naruto began thinking more and more about the idea. Initially he had little interest, partly due to the fact the other inhabitants were equine, and to him it was a bit odd. All from the get-go Naruto had already known how attractive the mares were, thanks to having a body similar to a human. He was more interested in other things like learning the history and settling in. The other part was out of devotion to the memory of Hinata. Out of respect for her, he didn't want to immediately get involved with the next pretty face he saw and accept her as the love of his life, as he felt it would spit on everything his wife had suffered in an effort to not only grow stronger, but to prove her love for him. Once more thinking back to the not date, he was beginning to wonder if he was ready to start dating. It had been quite a long time and he felt he was rusty. Then again, that was why he came to see Rarity about right. Right now he needed to stop daydreaming and began focusing on the meal. With that, he began making the batter, which would soon make its way into the form of hay cakes. The eggs were soon finished, along with the hash browns. The orange was poured and the tea was served. He glanced at the clock and noticed it was 6:47, meaning 13 minutes until Rarity got up to start her routine. He supposed he should go wash up again and prepare for the day. He jetted up the stairs and began entering the bathroom. For a brief moment he thought about the fact he left the door open, only to bump into something. It all happened faster than he could react. He threw his hands out to latch onto something, only for him to fall back with who could only be Rarity falling on top of him. Rarity? It was Rarity all right, but not in her usual state. There was no makeup, she had a case of bed hair, and her fur had yet to have been groomed, but nonetheless she was still remarkably beautiful. And she was wearing a parted robe with nothing else underneath the robe, because she was obviously getting ready to take a shower. She let out a shrill cry of embarrassment and hurriedly closed the top portion of her robe. "What are you doing here?" she yelled at him. Startled, surprised, and embarrassed were just some of the things Rarity was feeling right now. While Naruto indeed had a spare key, he was usually good about letting her know he was coming over. "Sorry. I came over because I needed to see you about something," he hurriedly explained. "Well, I trust that this is not so much of an emergency that it cannot wait until I get dressed." "No. So I'll just wait downstairs," he said as he made his way down to the kitchen. He sat at the table, wondering how long it would take Rarity to get ready. The sound of Rarity's gasp 15 minutes later signaled that the seamstress could get ready when she really put her mind to it. "I see you made breakfast. This reminds me of when you still lived here. Well, simple, sometimes I found your dishes enjoyable. Just making sure you're sticking to the diet I suggested, I suppose. He shrugged off the compliment with a slight blush and twinge of bashfulness to his voice. Rarity let out a playful sigh, acting exasperated as she gave a hard roll of her eyes. I am, despite the fact that the scent clings to my fur. Even if their outings had lessened, the training exercises they had started together had now ingrained themselves into Rarity's way of life. Anyway, let's enjoy the breakfast then. He suggested. Thankfully Rarity was going to let what happened upstairs go. Taking her seat at the table, Rarity waited as Naruto served her a plate. Grabbing his own plate, he took a seat opposite of her and began to eat. Once breakfast was done, Naruto decided it was time to speak to Rarity about his purpose for being there. As always, you did a splendid job. She complimented as her smile set him at ease. Rarity, there's something I need to talk to you about. Something I've been thinking a lot about lately. Something I hadn't begun considering about until just now. I see, then this matter will be our topic of discussion during our walk. Rarity said as she got up from the table. Walk? Naruto called out to her as he got up and followed her. Why yes, you did not think I forgot about what happened earlier this morning, did you? As soon as she finished the question, Naruto winced. He was really hoping that she did in fact forget about the moment in question. I will not accept a mere apology for you scared the heavens out of me. In order to make it up to me, I wish for your assistance in gathering some flowers by the edge of the Everfree. I have ideas for a new full line and I wish to get an early start. Well, if that's the case then I'll help you pick the flowers. He walked over and plopped down on the couch, knowing it would take Rarity anywhere from a half hour to much longer to get ready. As always, you are such the gentlecolt. If everything goes according to plan you might get a little reward. She softly sang out to him as she used her tail to flirtatiously stroke the underside of his muzzle. She smiled coyly as she left the room, as she could only imagine the blonde's flustered looks. All in all, she had to admit it was a rather bold move. Then again, the stallion had really rubbed off on her. I just do not want to give up so easily. Even if he wasn't a prince, she just couldn't stop those warm feelings she would get when she was around him. This morning, bumping into him, talking with him, as well as waking up to him cooking for her this morning. It brought back so many memories, and it reminded Rarity just how lonely the boutique had gotten when Naruto left. It didn't seem as warm as when he was there. Maybe, just maybe it would be okay. She could. Rarity looked herself over in the mirror. While she did a good job in the form of a quick fix, this would not do if she wanted to draw the blonde's attention. She wanted to be sexy and seductive, while at the same time classy and dignified. After much searching, she finally decided on a dark blue blouse which, while it did hide her cleavage, emphasized her torso quite nicely too, and gave her room to breathe. She also settled on a flowing skirt, which fit on her like a second skin, but was roomy enough around the area of her legs, which wouldn't be inconvenient for walking. The two found themselves in the area near the Everfree, and Naruto found he was more focused on Rarity than searching for flowers. At first he thought she was anxious to get to the flowers to start working, but slowly but surely he began picking up on the fact that she seemed to be maneuvering herself to be in front of him at all times. He would have kept up this train of thought if Rarity's oddly twitching tail hadn't drawn his attention to her backside. His eyes magnetized towards her plump butt, to which her skirt outlined very nicely. All the while Rarity would sneak a look backwards, silently giggle and put a little swing in her hips. Naruto knew one thing for sure. If Rarity ever started teasing him, then he didn't think his heart, let alone his body, could take it. The cold showers and meditation were already losing their effect. Soon they arrived by a lake that neared the Everfree border. An assortment of flowers were growing near the waterline, and the lake seemed to glow as the sun's light reflected off it. I will start on one side and you gather the ones on the other side. Just remember not to get too many of the green ones. She finished with a shudder. The only thing he could think of that would make Rarity react that way was the Trixie incident. He remembered what happened shortly after he challenged the stage magician. Rare, come on Rare, open up. Naruto called out through her bedroom door. Go away. Rarity shouted through the door. I'm not seeing any pony right now. Rarity, I know you're upset right now, that's why I'm here. Can I please come in? Naruto waited a few minutes for a response, but none came. He knew Rarity was still there, he could still hear her ragged breathing and light sniffling. When she didn't answer, he decided to enter. Entering, he noticed she was huddled on her bed with her knees to her chin. Her eyeliner and makeup had smeared from her crying. From her breathing and shut eyes he could see she was trying to compose herself. Rarity was still dressed in the beautiful blue dress that she had made from the stage curtain. However, no matter how good the dress looked, her hair was still green. It's going to be okay Rare, he softly called out to her and took a seat on the bed. It might take a little work, but we can fix up your mane. He reassured her. It's not just my hair, Naruto, Rarity said to him, barely keeping herself under control. I was utterly humiliated in front of the town. When it comes to fashion I consider myself an expert. The fashionista of Ponyville. Rarity said as tears started to fall from her eyes again. And in one swell swoop, that braggart took it all away from me. So it was a matter of pride. Pride was always regarded as the most dangerous of the 7 sins. Rare, that's just the thing. Did Trixie really beat you though? Looking up at him, Rarity wasn't sure what he meant. I beg your pardon? She asked, intrigued at what he had to say. Well, think about it, you challenged her to a battle of beauty and grace. Did Trixie's attack on you show any sort of beauty and grace? Pausing for a moment, Rarity started to see where he was coming from. Trixie turning her hair green had nothing to do with the original challenge. She hadn't beaten her. You're right. Rarity said, perking up. The only thing that ruffian could do was turn my hair green. There's no elegance in that. Naruto smiled warmly at her. Exactly. It's going to take more than a little green to ruin you. Now, no need to fib. I know I look absolutely dreadful. Now Rare, when have you ever known me to lie about something like this? Rarity looked up at him with a curious gaze. Naruto, Rarity said quietly, do you really mean that? Do you really think I look okay like this? I won't lie. I think you're better with the purple, Naruto answered honestly. But I think you can work the green. After all, your personality and generosity is what I find beautiful about you, Rare. It's going to take more than some main dye to change that. Rarity found herself overwhelmed by what Naruto admitted. She acted, leaning forward and kissing his cheek. After a few seconds, she pulled away and looked at the stallion, who merely looked on in surprise. Thank you, Naruto. Rarity said simply, resisting the urge to kiss him again. Naruto found himself shaken out of the memory and began to pick up flowers. Every now and then he'd glimpse over at Rarity, who would bend over to pick some flowers before tossing them into her collection bag. He watched as her tail bobbed whilst Rarity gathered more flowers. What he wouldn't give to slide himself between her soft-looking flanks. What the hell? Where did that thought come from? Naruto was pretty good at controlling himself. Growing up as a Jinchuriki meant having to deal with hormones much stronger than an average human being. Even then, it had been years since it had ever become this uncomfortable. It seemed like forever until Rarity finally collected enough flowers for her design. So, do tell, what was it that you so urgently wished to speak to me about? Well, you see, I'm not really the best when it comes to romance. He began, stuttering awkwardly and blushing. I haven't even thought about it now until recently, but I knew I needed to see you. Rarity repressed the urge to gasp. Oh my Celestia. Is Naruto going to confess? Is my hair alright? Did I chew enough breath mints? She felt like she was going to faint. What was he saying? You were the best pony to talk to about this matter. I wanted this dinner to be something nice, special for her. Wait a minute. Her? For a moment Rarity stammered. Excuse me darling, could you repeat that last part? Special for her? Yeah, you see, we recently started spending a good deal time together. Dealing with other ponies because of her past makes it difficult, and I wanted to help her get over it, you know. Every pony has this perception of her being a shut-in and unwilling to deal with others, but I wanted to change that, you know. Shut-in. Difficult past. Perception of unwillingness. Naruto wants to court Fluttershy. Rarity thought in surprise. Well, it wasn't unheard of for a stallion to approach a mare, it was still rather the norm for the mare to make the first move. Then again, considering it was Fluttershy, it wouldn't be unusual for her to be the mare that was courted. I see. She answered, willing her expression to be neutral. She still had a chance though. He was going to enter the courting stage, he would be free to be courted by other mares once word got out. While she was more in favor of the monogamous pairing, she knew how in towns like Ponyville, it could give one of a stigma of being rather greedy. It could hurt her professionally if that were to be the case. Then again, she would also have to consider the feelings of her friends. Was she willing to do this, Fluttershy? She had a feeling even if the Pegasus was the head mare, she would fall back into being submissive to make those around her happy. Rarity didn't know if she could stomach the idea of doing that to her friend. Fluttershy would probably convince herself that she was okay with it just so she wouldn't disappoint her, if even agree to it at all to avoid being a third wheel. Even then, she had on guarantee that Naruto felt that way about her. He was one of her best friends, but was there any guarantee that he wouldn't hold some resentment towards her for manipulating the situation to fulfill her own desires without any consideration towards her friends? Rarity took a glance at the lily of the valleys in her basket, the flower with the same color of her coat. She found that she could not do it. Those two were more than just her friends, they were like family to her. She was going to be happy for them. She deserves more than that. She deserves a proper outing, or at least more than just a simple dinner. Naruto looked hesitant. It's just I'm not good with this sort of thing. It's been a while since I dated, and well, I know next to nothing when it comes to a mare's body language when it comes to dates. Well darling, it is a good thing you came to me now, is it not? Rarity responded with a smile. I would recommend you go on a few dates and build up some confidence. Let the mare know ahead of time that you are considering starting your first courtship and that you wish to go on only one date, that you wish to find out what traits appeal to you in a mate. You should also avoid taking flowers from any mare that you do not plan on deepening your relationship with. Thanks Rare, he responded, knowing he could count on her. He could always count on her. In thinking about dating, he could earnestly see himself dating her. Wow, I like Rarity. He finally realized. Congratulations Naruto, you're finally learning something about the fairer sex. She didn't even need to confess for you to get a clue about the possibility of liking her. Shut the hell up Kurama. You can count on me. I will always be your friend. Nothing will ever change that. She finished with a smile. Right. He suddenly found himself disappointed. The sudden label of being just her friend caused him to overlook the fake smile she was wearing. Even if he was a little sad, he wasn't going to hold that against the mare. She had made it clear the other day she was looking to date some prince or noble. He could only be there for her when she would need him. Even then, there were a few other mares he could think of that might be nice to get closer to. He began going through a mental list of all the mares he knew. Shine Spark Spell had did more damage than they thought. Seeing as no one besides Celestia was aware to the existence of Kurama and Naruto's seal, it made sense. After all, he was the only chakra user in Equestria. No one knew what could happen by mixing the two energies together, to which Naruto found out when he had passed out in the Everfree during one of his training montages. What happened with the dragon had severely bruised his pride. Make no mistake, he was proud of Fluttershy, but he should have been able to beat that dragon using Sage Mode easily. It should have taken one hit. In the past he was capable of grand feats, destroying small islands. Hell, even the fight with Sasuke resulted in a storm capable of eclipsing an entire country. Now he could hardly take on something that hardly came up to Gamabunta's knee without struggling. It was disgraceful, so he trained and pushed himself. Day after day without little care or limit. When Twilight and the others asked if he wanted to come along and plant Bluemberg, Applejack's pet tree as he often called it when he teased her, he politely declined. That left just about every mare willing to knock some sense into his head when he exerted himself out of town, or in some cases like Ditzy busy. Being a mother of two and working a full-time career didn't give you much time to make sure your friend wasn't often doing something stupid all the time. Of course he could have gone without the falling unconscious and being discovered by the girls because he went to the train station to welcome them back, which he did in a rush because he had no sleep from all the training. Worst part was that not only did he have to deal with Kurama's chiding, he also knew deep down he was being a damn moron by pushing himself so hard, but he couldn't help it. He just felt so damn frustrated about the whole thing. He had spent so long being this wise and powerful figure, to have it all taken away from him was a pretty big blow to his ego. Especially with the theory that he was simply experiencing a psychogenic shock during his initial arrival to this world and was slowly working through his issues by pretending everything was fine and somehow miraculously adapted to the situation around him. No matter how much he argued, whenever one had Rarity, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Fluttershy against you, no argument was going to win. The fact they had Twilight on their side as well was plain overkill. That of course meant he was being forced into Fluttershy's, seeing as she was a licensed medical professional. As such, he spent the next few days at her place while he recovered. As expected, Fluttershy was very caring, to the point she even insisted on giving Naruto a sponge bath so he didn't overexert himself. Too bad when he got around to taking his pants off, the poor girl had passed out. Either way, his healing factor seemed to have grown since that incident, a far cry from the old days, but much better than it was previously. He now went from having needed days to hours to start recovering his stamina and for his injuries to heal. He was now pretty much ready to start taking care of himself now. Beep-a-doodle-doo. The rooster's craw woke Naruto up from his peaceful sleep. Damn bird. He turned around only to have his nose pressed against a cheek. Wait a minute, he thought as he opened a bleary eye in response to a giggle. Hi. The cheery voice said with a bright grin. Surprise. She said, revealing she was wearing a pair of flannel pajamas with lollipops on it. Hey Pinkie. He supposed waking up with a mare like Pinkie Pie in his bed should have invoked some kind of response than a mutual greeting, but he was a bit too tired to care last night. You need something? She grinned at the blonde. I just wish to visit Neri. Also, I'm hoping to get your help. The cakes are going in for a checkup and I could use a little help. I see. That's right, the cakes had just discovered the cupcake was expected. The congratulations party was yesterday, which contributed to the blonde's tiredness. Naruto though was confused as to what Pinkie was talking about. She was more than capable of handling things on her own. I guess. He groaned, in no mood to really argue or anything. What's wrong, Neri? Not feeling well? She asked as a concerned expression formed on her face. Don't you worry about anything, Neri. Nurse Pinkie Pie is gonna make everything better. She grinned. The only thing that kept Naruto from being worried was the fact he was distracted by the image of Pinkie Pie in a nurse outfit. Of course, a few minutes later Fluttershy walked in. "Good morning, Naruto," she trailed off as her eyes widened. She was expecting to come in and see a sleeping Naruto. Not Pinkie Pie, wearing a nurse hat, pajamas, and straddling Naruto's stomach. "Hi, Fluttershy." Pinkie Pie cheerfully greeted, completely ignoring the fact that she had technically broken into the Pegasus's cottage. "Pinkie Pie, what are you doing?" she asked as she tried to keep what was without a doubt extremely kinky and naughty images out of her head. "I'm being Mary's nurse. He seems so grumpy, so I thought I'd give him a big ol' dose of Pinkie Pie," she explained, shifting about with her usual energy. Naruto groaned. If Pinkie didn't stop moving, he was going to give her a big ol' dose of something. "Oh, and I asked him if he could come and help me at Sugar Cube Corner, and he said yes," she added with a grin. "I see. Well, maybe we should, I don't know, let him come and get some breakfast, if you don't mind, that is," she pleaded with her useful bashful. "Okie doke," she said as she managed to cartwheel off the blonde. "Thanks, Shy, I'll be down." He paused and looked down at the bed. "In 3 minutes," he added. It's okay, I can understand if Pinkie caused you to have a reaction," she replied as her cheeks burned red. She walked over to him and extended a hand. Naruto sighed. Despite being embarrassed, he took her hand and allowed her to help him up. For a moment their faces drew close. Dangerously close. Her very warm, kind face with beautiful eyes. The two of them looked away. Thankfully things stopped being awkward. Naruto enjoyed breakfast and got ready to help Pinkie Pie later that day, whom had already left earlier to open the bakery for the day. As he traveled along the path, he took notice of Ponies setting up their kiosks for the day. Even though summer was heading out and fall would soon be the raining season, the warmth of the season could still be heard. Naruto pushed open the oak door and entered. "Just in time, Nary," she greeted him. The bakery wouldn't be open for another hour, more than enough time to set up. "First off, let's start with some inventory control," she cheerfully declared as she began her little hop and skip towards the back of the store. Naruto couldn't help himself but watch as Pinkie landed, her backside jiggling gloriously for his viewing pleasure. It was during the past few days that Kurama theorized why Naruto had such an increase in his sex drive. First of all, he was in a mortal body for the first time in decades. After he had died in his original life, he had taken on an ethereal form, meaning he no longer had the same needs of a normal human body. There was also the fact when he was reborn in this body, it was obviously from unnatural causes. Even to this day he wasn't sure how he gained this body. The two of them had debated this and came up with a number of factors. Regaining a normal body, meaning he had to get used to having normal drives again. Second, he was a Jinchuriki, so his urges and traits were never considered normal anyway. Third, he was reborn. The most likely explanation, of course, is that the magic of this realm had constituted a body for him, instead of him being naturally born with a body different from equine's, seeing as he still had a chakra system. For he was equine now, so he now had animal instincts which were multiplied by being a Jinchuriki. Which, considering he didn't grow up in this body and went through puberty, he hadn't had time to fully deal with and adapt with these urges. All in all, it was a pain, quite simply. Naruto then quickly began recalling the definition of inventory management to help get his mind on something else. A coy smile formed on Pinkie's face, glancing back to Blonde, who would quickly avert her eyes. She knew he was stealing glances and was quite flattered by the attention. He was just too cute sometimes. She suppressed the urge to sigh. Well, technically there was nothing to stop her from courting him. She was hoping some pony else in particular would ask him out already and hopefully would be open up to forming a herd. Contrary to what a lot of ponies think, people by no means was dumb or childish. Eager and a bit naive at times, sure, but that was due to being more light-hearted and optimistic. She was by no means oblivious to the nasty comments or sneers thrown her way. She just took it in stride and tried to win the naysayers over. She was also not ignorant of the eyes of stallion roaming her body. While Pinkie didn't focus on her body image, she did make sure to keep her stomach slim and her teeth in nice shape. Both she spent a good time maintaining things to her sweet tooth. Finally, with inventory management done, they began bringing the materials to the cooking area. Now where did I leave the flour? Pinkie wondered out loud as she went over to one of the lower cabinets, bending down to begin rummaging through its contents while shaking her backside to the left and right. She even wore a pair of shorts that said sweet stuff on it. As always, she liked the feel of his eyes on her. It made her feel like the only mare in the world, especially considering he spent so much time around mares like Fluttershy and Rarity. While Pinkie didn't focus that much on her looks, there was a brief moment in her life where her ex would put her down by comparing her unfavorably to other mares, but Naruto didn't do that. He was such a sweetie, if not a bit thick-headed at times. Her ears twitched as she caught the faint sounds of Naruto exhaling. After being done rummaging at the bottom, she stood up. She went over and grabbed a footstool. Hey Neri, I got to get something high up, come and steady me so I don't fall, okay? Right. His voice cracked slightly. Pinkie walked on top of the top step and began rummaging through it while humming. Every so once in a while her tail would accidentally brushed against Naruto's nose. She bit her cheek as she felt Naruto's hands on her hips. She fought back a giggle as she felt him tense. Once she finally had her feel of teasing him, she grabbed the item she needed before telling the blonde she was ready to come down. Soon enough everything else was taken care of and the all thing they needed to do was to start baking. Getting out the slips that had today's orders, they were ready to work. Pinkie broke open a bag of flour and was pouring some into a mixing bowl. She then up a carton of eggs and carefully cracking one into the bowl. Naruto mirrored her actions as he cracked an egg into the bowl on the other side. They continued baking, making all kinds of muffins, cookies, and cakes. The bakery would soon be opened and they would be ready to take walk-ins. Naruto was intently focused on starting the next cake when suddenly something bumped against him. What followed was a high-pitched oops. That was obviously not really sorry at all, jostling him and causing a puff of flour to end up scattering across his face, sticking in his mane and coating him in a fine white powder. He almost sneezed but held it in, glowering over his shoulder at the pink pony. Giggling faintly, Pinkie Pie brushed past him to take the mixing bowl and inspect it carefully for any eggshell before beginning to happily beat the eggs into the flour with a wooden spoon. "Sorry, Neri," she said with a happy giggle. "Well, I was going to have to shower anyway so it doesn't matter." He glowered, peering down at his shirt a moment and scowling at the streaks of white powder across it. "This is the price of baking," she said with an earnest nod, an errant swirl of the spoon, sending a spurt of cake mixture up onto her cheek. She didn't even seem to mind or notice at all, continuing to beat the mixture with rapid swirls of the wooden spoon. Moments later, slowing down at which she peered at him for a moment. "Okay. Now, you beat the mixture and I'll add the flavoring," she said with a happy smile. Naruto accepted the bowl tentatively and lifting a hoof to the wooden spoon, beginning to swirl the mixture about in a more calm fashion than the happy mare. Naruto stole a glance at Pinkie as he watched her pour in some flavoring that predictably exploded outwards, coating them both. He knew Pinkie tend to have a tendency to get messy, but did she really have to get him so dirty? Finally it was time to add to the mixture. Using the spoon she poured the mixture into the pan. Then it was time to add his mixture and predictably Pinkie hip bumped him, causing him to lose a large splash of chocolate mixture all over the pan, with a fair splatter missing. For a moment he panicked before stopping and remembering this was Pinkie Pie and it was probably part of her usually randomness. Sure enough, the more random he poured it the happier Tamare got. Once it was done, Pinkie took it out of his hands and placed it in the oven. And that takes care of all our pre-orders. Once that one is done cooking we can add the icing, then open the bakery. She began rummaging about for a clean mixing bowl, coming up with it and dumping a load of icing sugar in it messily, grinning at him for a moment. "You know, you look funny with all that mess on you, Neri." She began sauntering back over to him and leaning up against him. "Oh, I just wanna lick all that mess right off you," she said with a happy little bounce. Now if it was any other mare that would have been blatant over the top flirting, but considering this was Pinkie Pie, there was an actual possibility that she really did want to lick the frosting off him. She then grabbed both his cheeks and began to move forward as Pinkie began closing her eyes. Naruto was stunned. Was Pinkie Pie going to kiss him? Her lips were inches from him when she licked him. Her tongue brushed along his cheek. "HHM chocolately," she med. Naruto let out a groan. Of course she wanted to lick him. "Pinkie, are you done fooling around?" Upon seeing her move back he realized that came out a bit harsher than he meant to. "What's got you being such a Mr. Frowny Pants? You haven't smiled once all day," she said as Naruto began to deny it. "You can't fool me, Neri, I know the difference between a fake smile and a real smile." "I guess," he began to murmur. "Naruto." The use of his name instead of a nickname drew his attention. Their eyes met and he realized Pinkie was in serious mode. "You haven't been the same since we faced that dragon. You even broke your promise of not being reckless. You made us all worry. Made me worry. I don't even know what you're thinking or feeling because we don't spend much time together anymore. Please talk to me." "Because I wasn't strong enough," he admitted as he felt Pinkie placed her hands over his. He let out a small exhale. "I spent all that time training so I wouldn't be helpless. So I can protect you and the others. What good is my strength if someone can just hurl a magic spell at me? If it hadn't been for Fluttershy we all would have died." As soon as he finished Pinkie Pie stepped forward as Pinkie Pie pulled him into a hug. "You silly Billy, you don't have to take on everything on your own. Friends are supposed to support each other. Like how we supported Twilight during the Summer Sun Festival." Pinkie rested her head on Naruto's chest. "If you need to see someone about magic why not just see Twilight? Well, what did he have to lose? If not Twilight he could always go to Celestia for information. I'll keep that in mind, Pinkie. I'm sorry for worrying all of you. I haven't been the best friend lately and I promise I'll talk to you girls instead of just indulging in self-destructive behavior," he said as he pulled her into a hug. Pinkie Pie is a wonderful friend. Loving. Caring. Maybe I wonder if I should." A smile formed on Pinkie's face. Unknown to Naruto, there was a bit of sadness behind the smile. Why is Rarity being so silly and not making her move? If she doesn't hurry up and take this chance, I won't be able to help myself and end up making a move. The two of them were so consumed by their thoughts they missed the jingle of the bakery. Oh my. Naruto's head jolted up and sure enough there were the cakes. Carrot Cake, the shop's proprietor, a rather tall and lanky earth pony. By earth pony standards he was rather lanky to the point most who meet him for the first time wondered if he was recovering from a long-term illness. His coat coloring was brilliant amber with light brilliant orange freckles on his upper muzzle. He had moderate pistachio eyes and unkempt light brilliant orange hair. He and Mrs. Cake were in one of the town's uncommon monogamous relationships. He was dressed in plain light brown pants with a red and yellow striped collar shirt. Normally a mare like Cupcake would be dismissed as selfish and there were a few mares at town who would attempt to be subtly snippy with the mare, but she didn't care. Cupcake was not superficial in the fact that looks were one of the primary factors she based courting Carrot around. He was sweet and had a good heart and loved her for her. On one hand, Cupcake's plot more than turned a few heads, but thanks to being a bit plump, she was passed over more than once as a partner for mares with slimmer figures. Despite being a bit heavised, Cupcake was still a beautiful mare with a pink and gold vest, with a pair of blue jeans that clung to her full-bearing hips. Her features consisted of brilliant rose eyes, light pale crimson with light grayish crimson striped mane, done in the style of a beehive with a light cerulean coat. "We aren't disturbing anything, are we?" Cupcake asked the coyness in her voice hard to miss. "Now I know what it's like to be young, but think you two can wait until after we close the shop for the day." Carrot Cake's heckling was so good-natured one couldn't really be mad at him. "So how did your appointment go?" Either Pinkie had missed the insinuations or plain didn't care. Cupcake began fumbling over her words. "Turns out we mixed up the dates. Appointment isn't till a few days later, you know," Carrot Cake answered, shifting uncomfortably. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "How did you?" He found himself cut off. "Are you going to be assisting us for the date, dearie?" Cupcake asked, distracting Naruto before he could continue his line of questioning. He was about to answer no when he caught Pinkie's look of hopefulness. It wasn't like there was much he could do until he healed up and he hadn't spent much time with Pinkie. He supposed it wouldn't hurt. "I guess I am," he answered as a cheer erupted from Pinkie as the blonde was pulled into a glomp. The married couple shared a grin. It wasn't a major step, but it was the first of hopefully many. Pinkie Pie after all was like a daughter to the Cakes and they saw how well the two went with each other. That in the 200-bit bet they made with the mare was more than incentive enough to give little nudges here or there. With that it was time to open the store for today. Chapter end. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Peace out.